Why are we so incredibly bad at measuring success in the professional world? I mean, think about it. Every single year, billions of dollars are poured into massive initiatives, only for them to catastrophically fail, leaving investors and communities totally holding the bag. The hard truth is that our traditional metrics are actively masking massive systemic failures. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling a subject that fundamentally reshapes how we define value: project sustainability. We're going to look way beyond the vague buzzwords and dissect some hard, measurable metrics of impact using the P5 Impact Analysis Framework, or P5IA. Get ready, because we're about to completely reframe what a successful project actually looks like. To really understand why we so desperately need a new framework, let's look at a cold, hard number: $14 billion. That was the final price tag for the infamous Boston Big Dig. Now, projects of this unimaginable scale rely heavily on complex project finance models and special purpose vehicles, or SPVs, to raise capital from investors. Planners initially estimated this massive infrastructure project would cost about $2.2 billion. But due to overlooked risks and estimation steps, like massive flooding that literally destroyed completed work and equipment, it ballooned to over 6 times its original estimate. And to top it all off, it was delivered 5 years late. When risks are overlooked, it's these financial structures and ultimately the SPV investors that bear the brunt of a catastrophic $14 billion blowout.
But it gets even worse, because sometimes hitting your targets perfectly still results in a total disaster. Let me give you an example. In 2016, officials in Montreal completed a brand new overpass for Highway 15. The construction effort was flawlessly managed. They spent about $11 million. But just 1 year later, officials realized the newly built overpass completely failed to align with the design plans for the upcoming redevelopment of the adjacent Champlain Bridge. The result? No way around it. That brand new, perfectly executed, multi-million-dollar piece of infrastructure had to be completely demolished. Which brings us to the most provocative question we can ask today. Why do massive, heavily funded projects still go disastrously wrong? I mean, if we have the smartest engineers, strict project finance models, and the rigorous governance of SPVs, why do these systems still fail to catch such massive blind spots? How do we end up with insanely delayed megaprojects or literally demolished overpasses? The answer lies in what we're actually paying attention to. We get so hyper-focused on the immediate finish line that we entirely miss the broader horizon. Section 1. Beyond time and budget. For decades, the absolute gold standard of success was simple: delivering on time, under budget, and within scope. But those metrics, they tell a dangerous, incomplete story. Being on time and under budget absolutely does not guarantee success. As the research clearly highlights, a project fails if its planned benefits are not realized. Period. If an initiative performs exactly as planned but causes immense unseen social or environmental harm, the overall value to the organization and honestly the world is completely nullified. What the data actually confirms is that sustainability isn't just peripheral to project performance, it's predictive of it. Integrating sustainability significantly increases the chances of realizing true long-term business value.
Section 2. The P5 Framework Explained. Okay, let's dive into this. This is where the P5 framework steps in as the ultimate solution and safeguard. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer depth and structure of the P5 hierarchy. It brilliantly translates those abstract sustainability goals into hard, actionable metrics. The framework moves from the overarching project layer right at the top, cascading all the way down through impact lenses, specific domains, broader categories, and finally down to highly detailed elements at the bottom. It evaluates impacts arising from how the project is executed, what it produces, and how those outputs are maintained over time. So this isn't just some high-level fluffy philosophy. It's a massive, structured tool set designed specifically for decision-makers who are managing complex trade-offs. So what does P5 actually stand for? Well, it expands the traditional triple bottom line to include 5 critical dimensions. First, we have people, which addresses social impacts like labor practices and human rights. Second, planet, covering environmental systems, energy, and biodiversity. Third, prosperity, looking at economic and financial viability. But here's the real game changer. It adds process, which evaluates the fairness and efficiency of your execution and governance. And finally, product, which looks at the lifespan, servicing, and end-of-life disposal of what you're actually building. Together, these 5 Ps ensure absolutely nothing falls through the cracks. Section 3. Scoring sustainability impacts. Now, sustainability cannot just live in an annual report. It has to be operationalized. and that requires a rigorous scoring methodology. To do this, the P5 impact analysis uses a brilliant, straightforward 1 to 5 scale. A score of 1 means severe degradation. Basically, the project is causing significant harm, and there's little to no mitigation in place. A 3 represents the baseline condition. This means neutral. You aren't making things materially better or worse. But look at a 5. A 5 isn't just doing less harm. A 5 represents net positive enhancement. This means the project is actually regenerative. It creates new capacity or leaves the system definitively better than it was before the project even started. So how do we use these numbers in the real world? We aggregate them. Imagine you evaluate your project and you calculate a 3.8 in people, a 3.2 in planet, and a 4.0 in prosperity. You average those out and you get an overall score of 3.67. This gives management a tangible decision support score. It immediately answers a critical, highly complex question with simple math. Overall, is this project making things better, worse, or just staying neutral? A 3.67 indicates a slight net improvement overall, but there is a massive catch to this math.
Section 4. The no masking rule. So the crucial point here is how the system handles major discrepancies, which brings us to a brilliant safeguard that prevents companies from gaming the system. And this brilliantly illustrates what's called the no masking rule. Imagine a scenario where your project has a prosperity score of 5 because it promises a massive financial return to your SPV investors. But your planet score is a 1 because the project is going to cause severe, unmitigated environmental damage. In standard math, a 5 and a 1 average out to a 3, but the no masking rule dictates that a strong financial score can never hide severe environmental or social destruction. If any material element is rated a 1 and remains unmitigated, the overall project score is capped. It literally cannot exceed a 3. It stops greenwashing dead in its tracks. You simply cannot buy your way out of doing severe harm.
Section 5. From concept to action.
Let's move to the practical side and see how this all builds together into actionable steps. The mechanics of the P5IA involve 5 concrete steps to run an analysis on your own initiatives. First, you identify internal and external events that might impact those 5 P dimensions over the product's useful life. Second, you describe the root causes and the potential impacts. Third, you assign that 1 to 5 rating based on magnitude. Fourth, and this is the absolute key, you don't just record the bad news, you identify responses to minimize the negative and maximize the positive. Finally, step 5, you re-rate the impacts based on the assumption that those responses are successfully implemented. It takes passive observation and turns it into active, managed improvement.
To wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful quote from the source material. The question is no longer whether projects have impact. The question is whether that impact is intentional, measured, and responsible. Think about that for a second. Every time we allocate resources, build a product, or change a process, we're actively shaping the future. With the P5 framework, we finally have the tools to ensure the future we're building is not only financially sound, but structurally sustainable. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Now, go take a hard look at the true impact of your next project.